Hello folks, Dick Fairburn here. A few months ago, when I was a very newly elected member of the NRA Board of Directors, I asked what topics were important to you, the rank and file members. I got quite a bit of feedback and I passed that along. I wanted to wait until I attended my first round of committee meetings before I responded to that video, so I know it's been several months. Now, I recently attended those meetings in Virginia, then I'm ready to report. I came away from those committee meetings excited for the future of the National Rifle Association, what we're calling NRA 2.0. And that's going to be a radical change from the last several years of NRA management. Stick around. I'm going to tell you what NRA 2.0 will look like and what the new Board of Directors hopes to accomplish. I want to announce to you that both versions of my book, Building a Better Gunfighter, are available now on Amazon.com. There's a Kindle book version of this for $9.95. There's the paperback copy for $19.95. Of course, sales tax is going to be added to both of those. Just search for Building a Better Gunfighter. Now, I want to stress up front that the opinions I'm going to express in this video are mine and mine alone. I do not speak for the National Rifle Association Board of Directors in any official capacity. These are my opinions. After I was sworn in April at the annual meeting, we had to notify the new president what we were interested in terms of committee assignments. And I was fortunate enough to get my first three choices of committee assignments. So I have been assigned to the Education and Training Committee. Now, I have a lot of background in NRA instructor work, but on the law enforcement side. And this is the civilian side of education and training. So it's a learning curve to me to see what all programs they have. But I think part of the why I wanted to be there was to try to bring some of the stuff we've learned in law enforcement and move it over onto the civilian side of the NRA and maybe bring it forward in terms of being more modern and more relevant. So, Education and Training Committee, I was appointed to the Hunting, Conservation, and Ranges Committee, interest of mine. And perhaps most important to me at all was the Law Enforcement Assistance Committee. Glenn Hoyer is the guy in charge of the NRA law enforcement staff. He's good enough to send me a nice NRA law enforcement polo to wear. These committee meetings, the excitement in these meetings was obvious. And talking to Board of Directors members who've been there for a while, I got the impression that the excitement we saw was very different from what they had been seeing the past few years. So clearly, change is happening. Now, I said at April, at the NRA annual meeting in Atlanta, I was sworn in as one of about 20 new Board of Director members. Almost all of us are open and vocal reformers. We want to see the organization changed dramatically. I got a one-year term. Every year they elect 25 members to the Board of Directors. And then an extra member is elected for a one-year term at the annual meeting each year. I did not make the cut to be in the top 25 vote getters. So what I got was a one-year term. I am filling the remainder of a term of someone who either died or resigned. So a one-year term. Now, my impression of the membership of the Board of Directors in general, when I first sat in that meeting in April, my impression, quite frankly, wasn't very good. There was some open hostility there. There were some people who I thought probably didn't need to be there. Of course, I'm sure they probably felt the same way about me. They seat us alphabetically, and the guy next to me happened to be another one of the brand new board of directors members. He had a 3-year term. And at one point, I kind of leaned over and I said, it looks to me like we have way too many old guys and way too many lawyers in here on the board of directors. And he's a lawyer, but he didn't take offense to that. He basically agreed with me. And my impression is that most of the members of the NRA Board of Directors there in April were obviously wealthy, very successful, very, very high percentage of attorneys. So I'm not really the only redneck on the board, but we are few. And I said that in September at the first Board of Directors meeting I went to where I attended committee meetings. I said that to another board member. And that, that the makeup seemed to be old and wealthy and just not necessarily a representation of rank and file NRA members. And this gal made a good point. She kind of explained some things to me. And she's a very dedicated reformer too, I would add. Some things I hadn't considered. She said, well, very few young working people have 3 weeks out of their schedule to let them go to 3 annual board of director meetings at various places around the country. If they do that, they don't have any vacation left for their family. So a lot of older, retired, like me, and wealthy people have sort of filled the ranks of the NRA Board of Directors. So that kind of makes sense, I guess. And my thought in that first meeting in April was that, some of these board members should be gone. And I still feel that way. Some due to their age or perhaps their infirmity. In one of the committee meetings I was in, I'm 70 now, but the guy across from me was clearly much older. He basically slept through the committee meeting. And people were kind of chuckling about it, but they were also being careful not to wake him up. Well, you know what, sir? Go home. Let somebody else come in here who's going to pay attention, going to be active. I got the impression that a lot of these older board members, and a lot of times their spouses are with them, which is great, that's fine. I think to them it's become a social event. It's 3 times a year they get flown somewhere in the country, and one of those is the annual meeting, which is a big deal, and mini SHOT Show and all that, and they see all their buds on the board of directors at the NRA's expense. It's their social life. That's not why I'm there. And I don't think that's why we should become active in an organization like that. Now, there are still some Wayne LaPierre supporters on the board of directors. But I will say this. Everyone I met there, even the ones who I think should be gone, are basically very good people. I think they are patriots, and I think they are almost 100% strong Second Amendment supporters. So it's not like they're bad people, and it's not like they're not there to want to do good for the country and for the membership. It's just how they've evolved, I guess. Now, I will say, at my first meeting in April, some LaPierre supporters were obviously still in evidence, and they were vocal. Right up until the moment when the president, Bob Barr, was voted out. Only by a couple of votes, so the reformer majority was not strong, but it was sufficient. That shocked that meeting. And when Bob Barr was voted out, and I'm not saying he's a bad person, the climate in that board of directors meeting changed almost immediately. And the change between that April meeting and what I saw in September was even more dramatic. Several of those prominent LaPierre supporters weren't there. Somehow they had other things they needed to do for this meeting. And those who were there were much more subdued. I think they realize they're not in the majority. It finally sank in. Several of those cabal members were not automatically nominated to run again by the nominating committee. Now they're all circulating petitions. I have no doubt they will probably get enough signatures to get their names on the ballot again. But the reformer-controlled nominating committee made it clear to them that we didn't necessarily want them around anymore. That changed their attitude. So I think clearly now the reform movement has a solid majority, and we are rapidly changing the direction of the National Rifle Association. Our new president, a guy named Bill Bockenberg from Pennsylvania, he's a very successful businessman, mostly retired from that now. He is rapidly restructuring the NRA to run more like a business than the dysfunctional bureaucracy it had become. Now, the NRA took a lot of years to get to the state they were in, and turning a battleship that big takes a while. But the turn towards a good direction is already obvious to me. An example. There was a Texas law firm who was defending the NRA in the New York court actions brought against us by their Attorney General, Letitia James. That Texas law firm had been bleeding the NRA dry. The reform movement had tried to get that law firm fired, but were unable to do it previously. But they finally got enough votes to throw that law firm out. Now, that was before I became a member of the board of directors, so that was done ahead of time. But we saw in this meeting the amount of money that they had been sucking from the NRA's coffers for that New York action. It was stupendous. And even more than that, some things discussed that caught my attention is that the head of that law firm in Texas is a dedicated liberal. He's probably completely in favor of gun control. They had hired, essentially, our enemies, in terms of attorneys, to defend us. Who would do something like that? I'm from Illinois, the most corrupt state in the country. If something like that happened in Illinois, I would say somebody's getting kickbacks from all that money that the NRA is sending to Texas to that law firm. I'm not alleging that, of course, but that's what I would think. The marketing firm the NRA had been using for many, many years was changed in September. It's changed to a firm who specializes in not-for-profit groups, some of the largest not-for-profit groups, good groups, conservative-type groups in the country. And they certainly came across to me as being strongly pro-Second Amendment. And their fee is about half the price the NRA had been paying to their marketing firm. Now, the board of directors has heard the most common comment that I got in the feedback from my first video. And it wasn't just me, they heard it from a lot of people. And that comment, to paraphrase, is something along the line of, stop flooding me with mailings offering me cheap Chinese crap as some kind of an incentive for fundraising. Believe me, they heard it. Now, that's the way the NRA and the Institute for Legislative Action, that's the way they've raised money for years. And it's not just them. I'm a member of the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation and Ducks Unlimited. Other groups raise money the same kind of way. Kind of raffles deals, or give us some money and we'll give you a knife. Or it must work or they wouldn't do it. But it is offensive to a lot of us, especially life members. So they've heard it. The new marketing firm has heard it. We'll see how much it changes. The new NRA 2.0 knows, very strongly knows, that we must gain ground with the younger members if our organization and more our culture is to continue. So they're going to move rapidly, move heavily into digital media. Here's one of the things I learned at the Law Enforcement Assistance Committee. One of the NRA's greatest secrets. This is for anyone who's an active law enforcement officer who's watching this now. Pay attention. They asked me, did I know this? So I'm going to ask you, do you realize that as a law enforcement member, you can join the NRA for $20 a year instead of $45 a year for an annual membership? And I think annual memberships are being discounted as I speak, but still, $20 is a heck of a deal. I didn't know that. And the guy who asked me that question said, did you also know that any NRA member who is active law enforcement also gets a $35,000 line of duty death benefit? I didn't know that. Since 2000, that death benefit program from the National Rifle Association has paid out over $4.4 million to the families of law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty. That's amazing. So I went to a local fraternal order or police meeting not too long ago, and I was talking to young cops there, and I said, hey, scan this QR code. I'm going to put the QR code up there while I'm talking about this. Scan this QR code. It's going to take you to a page where you can put in your credit card information for $20. You can pick which magazine you want to get, and there's a Rifleman, a General Gun magazine. They have a really good American Hunter magazine. They have competitive magazines. They have one for ladies. So pick the magazine you want. For $20 a year, you get the membership, and you get a $35,000 line of duty death benefit. And one of the young cops came up to me and he goes, we get $35,000 line of duty death for only $20 a month? And I go, no, it's not $20 a month. It's $20 a year. And you're helping an organization that is really one of the greatest civil rights organization our country's ever had. We just focus on that civil right that comes with the Second Amendment. So if you're interested, scan that QR code. Now here's some important things that I've learned so far about the NRA in 2 different board meetings. The NRA is still the Second Amendment 300-pound gorilla in the room. We have more members and more programs than all of the other Second Amendment groups added together. Now, we need those other groups. The NRA has worked with them in the past and will continue to work with them in the future. But folks, the National Rifle Association is the GOAT, the greatest of all time. We're the biggest, we're the most powerful, and despite the things that have taken us down over the last several years, we still are the biggest and the most powerful. Now, for 7 years, we've all heard in gun media that the NRA had dropped out of Second Amendment litigation issues and that they had been picked up by all these other groups, that they were doing the fight now. Well, at the Board of Directors meeting, the report from the Institute of Legislative Action proved otherwise. They have never stopped spending for litigation. That Texas law firm gagged them. So ILS, the Institute for Legislative Action, was still actively funding the courtroom battles, but the Texas law firm told them not to publicize that activity because it could jeopardize the New York court case. Or was it simply an anti-gun law firm trying to suppress what we were doing for their own liberal goals? Just speculation on my part. Now, I'm not denigrating Gun Owners of America, Firearms Policy Coalition, Second Amendment Foundation, Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership, several others that I'm sure I've missed. Those groups have done and still do great work in support of the Second Amendment. The NRA has worked with them in the past, will continue to work with them as strongly as possible. But as I said, the NRA is still the biggest gorilla in the room. And we do so much more than just the fight for the Second Amendment. The National Rifle Association is far and away the biggest firearms training group in the country. That's why we were founded in 1871. Because the military saw that so many of the recruits they got in the Civil War didn't know how to shoot. People, especially in the North, were moving from the farms to the cities and leaving behind that hunter-type mentality. So the NRA was formed for civilian marksmanship to prepare folks better to serve in the military. We oversee many of the firearm competition programs in the country. We have Eddie the Eagle to train kids gun safety. We have Friends of the NRA, which raises money for youth shooting groups like 4-H. My high school here in Illinois, some of the high schools have a trap shooting team. That's what a lot of that money goes for when you go to a Friends of the NRA banquet. Some of that money comes to the home NRA and is used for some of our programs as well. We have over 40 standing committees, many of them related to training, education, and competition. Because I, like a lot of other people, have said, why in the world do you need 76 members on the board of directors? Partially because they have 40 committees, standing committees, plus a few special committees. President Bockenberg has made a special committee on reorganization. The head of that is Ronnie Barrett of Barrett Firearms, and the goal is to combine some of those, especially competitive committees. And I think part of the reason behind that is to say, well, if we have fewer committees, maybe we don't need as many board members. Because bringing 76 people together 3 times a year is pretty good expense. That money I would rather see go into training programs and things like that. Now here's some of the specific takeaways that I picked up at the September board meeting. Our 2025 budget currently predicted to finish the year in the black, mostly due to some pretty deep cost cutting. And that means some programs in the NRA have been reduced. The NRA is down more than 1 million members since a few years ago. Most of those who dropped out, in my opinion, dropped out because of the scandals associated with Wayne LaPierre and his cabal on the board of directors. It kind of amused me that in some of the meetings and social groups and dinner that you go to and things like that, the name Wayne LaPierre is almost like a Harry Potter movie talking about Lord Voldemort, he who shall not be named. People refer to those days, but it's like they can't force themselves to say the name anymore. He's gone, folks. The court forced him to pay back over $4 million. As a cop, I suspect that's what they could prove. He probably milked the organization for far more than that. There again, just my opinion. The committees now have a larger percentage of subject matter experts on them, so I've been told. This is my first round of committee meetings, my first experience with it. In the past, I think a lot of those committees were made up almost exclusively of board of directors members. But President Bockenberg is very big on bringing in people who know the topic that they're dealing with. And as an example, the guy who gave the report about high-power rifle and F-class rifle shooting, he's head of the committee, he said they now have top-tier competitors in those sports on the committee for the first time in several years. When I sat in the Committee on Hunting, Conservation, and Ranges, on one side of me was a gentleman who was from Ducks Unlimited, who had recently retired as the director of Florida's Department of Natural Resources, ran the whole state program. Next to me was a lady who had been the director of U.S. Fish and Wildlife under President Trump's first term. She's an attorney now who helps groups get land acquisitions like Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation and stuff like that. A very avid hunter. So these are some pretty powerful people. Billy Bob Redneck here is sitting between some horsepower on this committee, and that's great to have those people involved. The Institute for Legislative Action announced that one of their primary focuses in the midterm elections coming up will be nationwide concealed carry. They don't think they have the votes to get it, but they're going to argue it as a kind of a talking point. And they're going to do everything they can to keep control of the House and the Senate in the midterm election to keep President Trump's agenda running strong for the full 4 years of his second term. The Institute for Legislative Action was a major player in the recent Big Beautiful Bill which was passed. And that dropped suppressor and short barrel shotguns and rifle NFA taxes to zero. They didn't get them knocked out completely, primarily because, as I understand it, because of the parliamentarian of Congress, who should be replaced, in my opinion. a liberal holdover. But getting the taxes down to zero is an important step in trying to get suppressors, short barrel rifles, short barrel shotguns removed from the National Firearms Act. And the NRA ILA was on Capitol Hill a lot and were major players in what happened then. Here's an example. The chairman of the membership committee gave their report at the Board of Directors meeting. He said they have met with ideas to regrow the membership of the NRA. They've met 7 times since that committee was named in June. According to him, that membership committee had not even met once, not a single time, in the previous 7 years. Things are different now. The NRA president, Bill Bockenberg, the first vice president and second vice president are all successful businessmen, not lawyers. I think that's going to change a lot of things as well. An accounting firm came in and went over with the board of directors the draft of the IRS 990 form. I'd never heard of it. That is what is filed by a 501c4 not-for-profit organization, which is where the National Rifle Association falls into the IRS code. So the draft of that was reviewed by the board of directors. That tells us what people make. That tells us where expenses go. We were told that that document had never before been openly presented to the NRA Board of Directors. Now, once it's final and filed with the IRS, it's a matter of public record. Anybody can go find it. Because I've wondered, how did LaPierre's corruption happen? How did the board of directors not know what was going on? I think a lot of them did know, but a lot of them didn't. That could be it. The draft of that IRS filing has never been presented to them before. And most of them probably never bothered to go look it up once it was final and filed. That's a dramatic change. I think the transparency is where we need it to be now. The media committee is being unified between magazines and other sources of media. They're going to develop an NRA app. They're going to have extensive social media presence. They're going to go after those younger potential members because their lifestyle is on a phone, not on TV. That's where they get their news. Now, I was nominated by the new nominating committee to run again. I only got a 1-year term. I will be running again this year. I hope to get a 3-year term this time. And I'm a believer in term limits. If I get 3 more years, I'm going to be getting older as I go. I don't know that I will want another term after that. I'd like to make some changes over this year, and if I get 3 more, I see it as an honor to be on the board of directors, even if it's just for a year. If I can get 3 years and go to 4, that'd be great. I'm not saying I won't run for another one after that, but I'm thinking I won't be that interested. I will try to do my few years of good for the organization and then turn it over to somebody else. But that means, unfortunately, that I will be campaigning. So as we get closer to the election coming, the ballot coming out in your magazines, I'll be telling you on my video that I'm running. Please vote for me. I would like to get another term. I'm going to do some campaigning here in Illinois. There's a group called Gun Saved Lives. They were instrumental in getting me elected this time. And I believe they have 10 different chapters around the state. It's my goal in the next 2 or 3 months to visit each one of those. I want to talk to them about what I've seen in the new NRA 2.0 and where I think the organization's going. So I will be campaigning for the next election coming up. For those of you who stuck with the NRA through tough times, thank you. I truly believe you're going to see some positive changes coming pretty soon. Those of you who dropped your membership during the corruption scandal, I understand. I understand completely. We're going to work hard to try to prove that change is underway. And I ask, sincerely, I ask you to consider rejoining the National Rifle Association. Help bring us back to our former level of strength or even beyond. And with that influx of members comes an influx of money that helps us contribute more money to the NRA lawsuit, to the Second Amendment lawsuits that are going on out there, as well as programs and competitions and training, and to me that is the core of what the NRA is all about. If you have any questions, and I'm sure I have not covered, by any means all the questions that you folks might have, post them in the comment section. I read every comment. I will try to reply to every question you have. While the NRA is becoming much more transparent, there are some things involving litigation or personnel matters that are done in executive session that can't be discussed. But I'll discuss anything I can. And I'm not trying to hide anything from you. So join me. Come back to the NRA, and I think we're going to show you that it's going to be worth your while to do so. So thanks for watching this video. I hope you find it useful. If you do, please subscribe, give me thumbs up, likes. Change takes time, but it has started at the National Rifle Association. So please join us as a part of NRA 2.0. Whatever you do out there, folks, we are here to support gun ownership and your ability to defend yourself. Y'all be safe out there. Okay, we got them both here now. You ready? Bud got one. Ginger got one. Oh, she missed it. She usually gets them, doesn't she, Bud? Okay, girl, last one. You ready? You ready? Yeah! That's all there is till next time.